Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you. Let's give us a minute. Let me just try, make sure this works. Oh, perfect, cool. Alrighty, I think I see a lot of familiar faces. You guys are all from Normales, right? Some? Okay, cool. So, as he said, my name is Michael Orviled. He pronounced it very well. My colleague couldn't be here today. He's a little sick. I'm sorry, so it's just me today. And I am from the United States. Does anyone know where? Who remembers? Or you can tell from my accent. Where do you think I'm from? New York? Well, you knew that already. I'm from New York. California? No, come on. I'm not like, dude, what's up? No. I'm from New York City. And yeah, I've taught in Spain. I've taught in China. I've taught in the USA, obviously. And now I'm here in Guadalajara, Mexico, working as an English language fellow. My job here is to train teachers. So, and I'll get more into that later on. But first, I want to talk about what we're here to talk about, which is preparing your students to communicate in a globalized world. So, you guys are English teachers. That sounds a little obvious. That's your job. But I think, unfortunately, what I see in a lot of classrooms is a lot of teachers, not saying you guys, but other teachers, they focus a little too much on the grammar rules, on taking tests, but there's never any communication. There's never any speaking. And I think as teachers, as English teachers, our main goal should be to prepare our students to communicate in a globalized world, to actually have conversations, speak, and we're going to get more into that in a little bit. So, by the end of today, you will learn what makes for a productive classroom discussion, learn techniques that get each student to discuss global topics, and discover free online resources that create a classroom conducive to communication. All right? So I want to do a little warm-up first. I don't want to do all the talking. I want you guys to talk more than I do, all right? Because I just don't feel like talking. So, with the person next to you, a couple minutes, just 2 or 3 minutes. And this is going to kind of guide our discussion. So, I don't know, you three, if you want to come over here, that'd be great. You two, talk to each other, and do you agree or disagree with the following statements? So, the first one, for example, teachers of the future will become facilitators rather than content deliverers. Does anyone agree with that? Kind of. All right, we'll talk. Take a couple minutes with the person next to you. Discuss. Do you agree or disagree, and why? And then I want to hear from you guys, all right? Couple minutes with the people around you, with the person next to you. Go ahead. You guys agree with the first one, right? Okay. What do you think of the first one? Agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay. Is that good or bad for teachers for the future?
Sorry?
You think that's good for teachers or bad for teachers of the future? No? All right. Yeah, just read them. Do you agree, disagree? Why? Do you agree or disagree? All of them. Do you agree or disagree, and why? Should be. Yes. we would like that. Another minute. Agree or disagree, and why? If I hear Spanish, 50 pesos you have to give me. For every word, too. Hola, ¿cómo estás? 150 pesos. All right. So the first one. Who agrees with the first one? Raise your hand. Teachers will become facilitators rather than content deliverers. Everyone agrees? Okay. Is that good or bad for us? I mean, I'm a teacher too. Do you think that's good for our future or bad? A lot of teachers are worried. They think they see all these things online, they see everything, and they worry about the future of teaching. Are you guys worried? Okay. Well, I'm not worried either. Don't worry. I think you shouldn't be worried if you teach the right way, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. But yeah. Number 2, let's skip that one. Number 3, students should be speaking 80 to 90% of class time. Who agrees? Ideally. Who disagrees? What percentage do you think? No, what percentage do you think of class time they should be speaking, producing language? Okay. And the 4th one, students need to understand a grammar point entirely before they can use it orally. Who agrees? Okay, thank God, good. I'm usually working with pre-service teachers, so you guys are a little more experienced, that's good. Where is my microphone? Okay. So, today, all these questions are a little bit all about discussion, communication, right? We want to create a classroom environment where our students are speaking, obviously, and communicating the right way. And for example, number 2, I kind of agree with. It sounds a little weird, but I sometimes think as a teacher, the less you do in the classroom, the better. The less you teach on the board, the better. And I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. So, why is communication so important? Well, obviously here, skills of the 21st century, if you look at the first 2, they require communication in English. And even if your students want to stay in Mexico, as you know, they're still going to have to use English probably on a daily basis where they work in the future, in 20, 30 years. Okay, so we need our students to speak, but how? It's much easier said than done. I think every teacher wants their students to speak in class, but you guys know, sometimes you do a speaking activity and a student sits there and says, yo que sé, profe, I don't know. And it falls flat, right? But there are strategies we could do to get our students to discuss, to collaborate, to communicate in a more productive way. So, if you really want your students to speak and discuss global topics of the future, you need to ask the questions in a right way. Okay, because I see a lot of time, even in textbooks, where it's a speaking activity, they want the students to discuss something, but the questions aren't really asked in a right way. What do I mean by in a right way? So here are some tips I think you should bear in mind when you want your students to speak. And I'll give you an example in a couple minutes. But first, I think questions shouldn't be too open-ended. All right, if you ask your students a very open-ended question, it falls flat sometimes. They don't know what to say, it's too open, they say, yo que sé, profe. Number 2, not too close-ended. Close-ended would be, do you like apples? Yes, no, okay, discussion over. That's too close, all right? So there's a sweet spot between open and between closed, so let's call it middle-ended, that I think you should be using with your students. Number 3, I think it's important to give students a goal or task when discussing. So if you just say, okay, in pairs, talk about your weekend, for example. There's no goal, there's no task. And again, your students will kind of just sit there. Not all of them, but many of them are not really going to talk. And research suggests that students should be giving their personal opinions or experience when speaking English, just in order to grasp the grammar point in a more efficient way. So, again, I want you guys in pairs with the person next to you. Which of the following questions do you think will spark the most discussion? Okay? Read the questions. Imagine, again, you're teaching, you have a group of intermediate, advanced students. Which of these questions will spark the most discussion? And which questions, if you ask your students, they'll just sit there and not say anything, all right? 2 or 3 minutes with the person next to you. Which is a good question to ask, and which is a not so good question to ask? Depends on the students, but in general, yeah. Which ones do you guys like? Number one? Number two, do you like? Which one will spark discussion? Which question do you guys like? Three? Okay. All right. Yeah. Another minute. Which one is too open? Oh, sorry. Which one is too open? Yeah, I think if I just say debate, it's very open, right? It's. I think we can have debates about the death penalty, but I think it has to be a little more structured, which we'll talk about as well. Another minute. All right. So I think I might disagree with some of you guys. I've been hearing your conversations, but that's fine. Number one, you put students in pairs and just say, okay, or you're the teacher and you say, what do you think about global warming? What's going to happen if you ask that question? Or what is that? Or very open question. Students think a lot of things about global warming. Hey, what do you think about global warming? I don't know. It's it's bad. Like it's a very open question. I think, and I've seen this actually in a textbook. It was a unit about the environment, and they said, okay, in pairs, discuss these questions. What do you think about global warming? And I tried it with my students when I first started. They talked for a second, and then they stopped. It was too open. What about number two? For me, I disagree, respectively. I think it's good in the middle. It's closed, you're right, but it's not too closed, I think. I think, right. Yeah, it's more closed, yeah. Well, let's look at question one and question two. Which one do you think, if we want to talk about the environment, which one do you think would be a better question to ask? I would say number two. It is closed, you're right, but I think it could spark a little discussion, a little debate. You're right, it is a bit closed, but I think better than the first one. We agree, right?
But also maybe it's another question that says why.
Yeah, why? Yeah. Discuss. Would you rather, yeah, if you were president, would you prioritize the environment or the economy? Why? Good. Number three, I also disagree with some of you, because I've tried this in my classroom. When I was a new teacher, I said, in pairs, talk about your weekend. It works sometimes. It does. But other times, what happens? Yeah, you can say, nada. Netflix. Yeah. I think it's a little too open. Number four, if I say in groups of four, just imagine I'm teaching. In groups of four, debate the death penalty. Go.
I think it's a little bit like the level.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know what is death penalty.
Yeah, if I've observed a lot of teachers, and they want to do debates. Debates are great, but they just say, okay, sit down, death penalty, let's debate, go. And the students just sit there twiddling their thumbs. Yeah, because I think if we want our students to discuss global topics, which is the topic of this workshop, in a productive way, we need to give them more structure if they're going to discuss, more ways to debate, right? And we're actually going to do that right now together, or you guys are going to do it, and I'm going to watch, all right? So we're going to do a little activity, and I need a volunteer. 2 volunteers. Just to help me pass out stuff. You're not going to talk in front of everyone, don't worry. Everyone gets a Post-it. Now, thank you very much. We're going to do... Oh, you didn't get... Everyone but you. All right, so I want you guys... We're going to have a little debate in groups, okay? I'll come to you guys in a minute. Which of the following do you think requires the most government investment? Rank them in order. So we have safety, environmental protection, education, cultural events and historic preservation, or infrastructure and transportation. So what I want you to do, take 2 minutes by yourself on the Post-it, rank them in order, okay? So for example, for me, number 1 is education, because I'm a teacher and I want more money. Number 2, I would say environmental protection. Number 3, cultural events. Number 4, infrastructure. Number 5, safety. That's my opinion, okay? Don't take mine. Take. Okay, you can take mine. That's fine. All right. So 2 minutes by yourself. Think about it. Rank them in order on the Post-it. Hold on. Don't debate yet. Don't debate yet. 1 second. Let me explain. 1 more minute. Think hard about your answers. About 30 more seconds. Rank them in order. It's not easy being a politician, is it? Oh. Alrighty, what I want you to do now, discuss, but here's how we're going to do it. So, in your groups, I want you to share your order with your groups and put it in a corner, the Post-it. Okay, so let me use yours. No, keep the Post-its on. Keep the Post-its on. Just like they did here, okay? Share with the group your opinion, what should be the order, and then in the middle, you might not finish, because this activity actually takes a long time, as you can imagine. But in the middle, try to reach a sort of consensus, an agreement, okay? In the middle, try to reach some kind of agreement, debate a little bit. Try to agree on what the order will be, all right? You guys are politicians, so you can be AMLO, you can be El Bronco. I'll be Biden. Um, who wants to be Alfaro? No, I'm joking. In groups, talk to each other and try to reach some kind of agreement, some kind of consensus. What do you guys think number one should be? What should number two be? And if you want, so assuming that you guys are intermediate students, which you're not, you can use these sentence starters as well to guide you. Okay? Oh, I have your. All right, in groups, 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to decide the future of Guadalajara. Go ahead. You can join them over here. Number one, what do you guys think?
Water. Oh. Where
I think number one is education.
I was gonna have a heart attack if you guys said no. Number one, what did you guys say?
Education, right?
Number one, what did you guys say? You guys all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, number two, what do you guys think? Talk to each other. Discuss. Number one, what did you guys say? What did you say for number one? Not education? You guys are teachers. Education is the priority, of course, no? What did you guys say for the first one?
Education.
Of course.
We're teachers.
Yeah. We need more money, right?
But now we're
If you can't agree, you can vote. This is democracy. All right? If you can't agree, vote. If you don't finish that in the 5 minutes, that's fine. Don't worry.
safety is transportation. So we have to transportation. But then safety was first with you.
Two more minutes. You don't care? I'm like a reporter. Why did
Imagine, you don't have roads, you don't have lights, but you will have cultural events. I think
But that
it's-
brings the money for the road, maybe.
Okay, maybe.
How do you pay for the road? Cultural events, no? Have you guys agreed?
Yeah.
Number one, education. Number two?
Number one.
Number three? Okay, good. Good. 2 more minutes. We're talking about Guadalajara.
No, we are talking about Guadalajara. principal.
Are criminals educated?
No, first we have people.
What's
so
the best way to make someone safe?
we voted.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. One more minute. One more minute to decide the future of Guadalajara. To decide the future of Guadalajara. Don't take the money in your. Alrighty. So, number one, what did you guys say? Education? You guys are teachers, come on, education. Are criminals educated? Go to a prison, say, who graduated high school? No one's going to raise their hand. That's my opinion. Thank you. Education? You changed your mind. They said environmental protection before, but they just changed their mind. Okay, so this kind of activity, again, if you want to create discussion in your classroom, if you want to create a debate, I think something like this is way better than just saying, okay, in groups, debate. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you get a good group and they debate and they talk for a long time, but sometimes it doesn't. But with an activity like this, you're ensuring, because you're giving them a task. It's not just talk. You're not saying in groups, talk. You're giving them a specific task, all right? Put these in order. And they're talking about more complex topics, right? So I do this with my high school students. I do this with university students. It works very well. But I know a lot of you don't have or teach different levels. So, again, with the person next to you, how could you modify this activity for different ages? And how could you modify this activity for different levels of English? So 2 minutes with the people next to you, and then I want to hear from you guys, okay? The activity we just did. Imagine you want to do it with your students, but they're pretty low, or they're younger. How could you modify it? Go ahead. How could you modify this for different ages? How could you modify this for different levels? Yeah. Yeah, for example, like... Yeah. What activity was that? People are stealing my ideas. I think that's what it sounds like. Another minute. Sure, my phone is right. Alrighty, I want to hear from you guys. Let's say you want to repeat something like this, but your students are a little younger. Or their level of English is not good enough, or not good enough, not advanced enough. How could you make this easier? How could you make this harder? Easier, go ahead.
So in our case, we decided that we would put illustrations to
Okay.
represent each of the different categories.
Yeah,
For example, for education, we can show students in the classroom.
yeah,
For safety, we can show a worker wearing a hard hat.
right.
Construction side, for cultural events, somebody dancing, or museum, or transportation, somebody getting on a bus.
Yeah, that would work really well with younger students, yeah, that for sure. And just put them in order.
Then maybe have them like, for each of these, pick a vocabulary word that would best match what you see.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, I like that. What else?
I think it's important that you identify first the level and the context of the student. Where
Right.
they live, what's the level, and like the interest of the student.
Yeah, so you could simply change the interest of the students, right? Because I've done this activity, but instead of this, I've said, imagine you're the directors of the school and choose subjects, English, science, PE, math, rank them in order. You could do that with younger students and they'll understand. And again, you're asking for their opinions, so they're gonna talk much more.
What about the classroom rules?
Yeah,
We review the classroom rules, they already know what they are, and maybe they can talk about.
right. Yeah, you could talk about rank anything, and it doesn't even have to be ranking. Sometimes I just put on the board like a yes or no question. Should we be required to wear school uniforms? Write your opinion on the post-it. Same thing. It doesn't have to be rank. It can just be, a yes or no. Should we do this? Should we do that? And then, but again, this activity will create more debate because you're still giving them a task. In the middle, reach some kind of agreement. Tell your students, pretend like you're the directors of the school, pretend like you're the government, and in the middle, reach some kind of consensus. It's gonna make a much longer debate. Sometimes this takes like 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes it takes much shorter, but it depends on the students. So yeah, those are all really good ideas. So, I work at the Esquina Franklin. Who's been there before? Okay, who's gonna come next week? Everybody, right? Well, let me tell you where it is first. We're located in the Juan Jose Ariola Library, across the street from CUSEA. You guys know where that is? We are located on the 5th floor there. What do we do at the Esquina? My job at the Esquina, I'm an English language fellow. My job is to train teachers. I do workshops like this with teachers like you, also with pre-service teachers. I do workshops. I'm also responsible for promoting English education. So at the Esquina Franklin, we have board game clubs, for example, because we don't do English classes at the Esquina Franklin. I think students get enough of that in their own time. So at the Esquina Franklin, we're trying to create clubs and activities that students actually use English with Americans in a realistic way. So, informal board game clubs just so they can practice their English outside of the classroom really helps. Does anyone know what game that is? It's the best board game in the world. Not Risk, better than Risk. Better than Monopoly. Catan, no one's ever played Catan? Catan it's called. If you're ever looking for a good board game to play with students, Catan is the best because you have to speak. You have to trade. It's about like building cities and resources, and you have and towns, but you have to trade with people. You have to converse in order to play. I'm surprised you guys have never heard of Catan. Fridays, 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock, we have the board game club. But if you come another time, you can play as well. So we have board game clubs. We have conversation clubs. This is where we really discuss global topics in the way you just saw. So we'll discuss the news. We'll discuss more informal things. I often give like TED Talks for homework, and then in classroom, we discuss it. Just things going on in the world. So, they're practicing their English, but they're also learning about what's going on. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. So we have the conversation clubs. We have a news club where, as I said, we read the news and talk about it. Cultural activities. Does anyone know what this is called to the right? Okay, it's carving pumpkins, but what's the name of the thing? Jack-o'-lantern, yes. We make jack-o'-lanterns. The thing to the left, you guys know better than I do. But yeah, we try to just create an informal environment for the students. And if you guys want to come as teachers and help out, you're more than welcome, okay? We pay 1,000 pesos per hour. No, I'm joking. We can give you nothing, but great chance to give back to the community, all right? We also do a lot of technologically related activities. So we have VR sets, we have 3D printing, and now, since all you guys came to my workshop, you're all gonna get a free VR set. No, I'm joking, no, of course not. But bring your students, and we have a workshop with the VR sets where students can use it and actually talk to students around the world virtually and speak with other Americans. Sometimes it's better for older students because there's crazy people out there online, but it's a good way to practice in kind of a realistic way their conversation. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to tell you guys, oh, go out and buy a bunch of board games and VR sets for your students. No, you can visit americanenglish.state.gov. Everyone take a picture. And there are tons of free board games you can print to create a similar environment in your classroom. Because, as I said, today is all about discussing. I'll bring it back, don't worry. So, remember what we said in the beginning, right? Sometimes as a teacher, the less you do, the better. And how the teachers of the future are more facilitators rather than content deliverers, okay? You guys saw today, you guys did most of the work. I didn't really do anything. Why? I think, honestly, it's 2022. Students don't really need teachers to explain grammar rules to them. They have Duolingo. They have other websites online, all right? I don't think it's the role of the teacher anymore to sit and lecture grammar rules. Students can do that at home. Students can do that in their free time. Or the fill-in-the-blank activities in the textbook. Again, as a teacher, you don't need to sit there and watch students do fill-in-the-blank activities. More communication, more speaking activities in the classroom will benefit your students for the future, right? Because as we said, these are the most important skills for the 21st century, all right? As you can see, doing grammar fill-in-the-blank exercises is not on that list. But communication and collaboration definitely is on that list. All right? So they told me the last 10 minutes I should open up to questions. There's the website again, americanenglish.state.gov. Free printable board games, activities, which I recommend as a teacher, every time before the school year starts, I'll print a bunch of those out, put them in my classroom, put them in my backpack. I have tons of fillers to use if I ever have extra time. You guys are teachers, you know. Sometimes you plan for an hour, and then the lesson only takes 30 minutes. And you say, what can I do now? Right? There you go. Whip out a board game from here or something you saw, and yeah, you're ready to go. All right? So they said the last 10 minutes are for questions. Or last 5 minutes, sorry. Go ahead.
In these conferences that I have attended yesterday and today, all the people suggested that we have to try the critical thinking, what is the other? Creative. I focus too much on the creative and all the projects that I have with my secondary school students. But the contents, unfortunately, the contents is not helping too much. The students don't have any prior preparation in primary school. So sometimes they don't even know English when they come to me. So I would like to hear any piece of advice that you can give me with these students don't have any knowledge in English? What can I do to focus a little bit more on critical thinking?
That's a hard question, but let me try my best to answer. But I think, as we said, this kind of activity, and I don't want to just say this activity is going to solve all the problems, but this is the one I showed. So I've done this activity with beginner students. I've done this activity with lower level students. Obviously, if you have a student who speaks no English, it's hard for them to discuss global topics. Let's be realistic, right? They need basic communication skills before they can do an activity like this. You're right. But notice with the sentence starters, I put a beginner, lower, intermediate section, right? I think beginner students could start to use the first 3 sentences. Maybe? What do you guys think? They could start formulating their own opinions in an activity like we did. Have you tried it with your students before?
Yeah, I have
Beginner
tried it.
students?
Yeah, mainly with the second graders and third graders.
Second graders and third grade. Okay, so yeah. With lower level students, I'm going to be honest, all my advice is, all my experience is more secondary and adult level English. I'm not too good with the lower level. Not that I don't like them. I like little kids, but I just think my temperament has never really been good for that. Does anyone else have an opinion for his question? Who is an elementary school teacher here? Do you have any advice for his question? You might be better than I am at that kind of question for second graders. No?
Yeah.
Well, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, you can start introduce him.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
a lot
Puerto
of people
Vallarta, tell
speak
us.
English in there, so the kids speak English just and their parents, but they need to learn more and use a lot of games, playing with them, flashcards, songs. They love songs, and then you can introduce them. Yeah, playing and role playing. They love to do it. Even in the secondary school, I think they're gonna like it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have another question? Sorry, I couldn't answer your question, but that's not my expertise.
I'm surprised that even secondary school kids, they love to sing and dance.
My question is, what do you do, or what do you think we should do when you teach students that are very apathetic? They don't want to learn English. How do you overcome that barrier? Because I don't want to generalize, but as Mexicans, we always think that, oh, I don't need English. I live in Mexico. I don't need to. I'm never going to use it, and they don't have that thinking of the future. They just think here and now, and they don't understand that we live in a global economy, that English is used by other countries in the world. How do you overcome that apathy?
Well, it's easier for me because, well, I'm American, and I tell my students I don't speak Spanish, even though I do. So it's but I think you guys can kind of replicate that in your classroom. I know it's much easier. Everyone says, no Spanish in the classroom, no Spanish in the classroom. And I understand. It's much easier said than done, all right? I've been there. It's hard to enforce that rule. But I think if you're really strict from day one and try to really create an English-only environment and be strict and consistent with it, over time, not at first, because I see a lot of teachers, they try to do English only in the classroom. And then after about a month, they give up because the students don't abide by it. They just speak Spanish. Give it a year, be known as that teacher in the classroom that doesn't answer to Spanish questions, right? Give that reputation and again, let me repeat, it's much easier said than done. I know, I've been there. I've taught English for 12 years. But I think if you work on that, build a reputation as, oh, there's Mr. H. He's not going to answer me if I ask him in Spanish. And be consistent with it. Be patient. I've seen results where your students they'll get angry, but eventually they will speak English if you force them to. If you give them the option, and if they ask you, ¿puedo ir al baño? And you answer sí, then yeah, they're not going to, if you give them the option to speak Spanish in the classroom, of course they're going to speak Spanish. I would too when I was that age, right? So be strict and consistent with that English-only policy. It takes practice, and it takes a lot of patience, I know. But if you're just believe that it's going to work eventually, it will, all right? I promise that. think we have time for
we have time for
one more question.
Maybe one or two questions, yes.
Kike, do you have a question?
Anybody else? Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Here you go.
Thank you. I just graduated as an English teacher. So
Oh, congratulations.
I
Round of applause.
Thank you. So I receive any advice is so good. So this kind of activities like the one we did before, it's good to do it at any time. Like if we have class from Monday to Friday, if it's good to do it like Monday, Tuesday, every day.
Well, an activity like that, I wouldn't do this activity every day, but I think your students, so if we go back to what I started with, number 3, students should be speaking 80 or 90% of class time. I do believe that, and Kike will tell you, I do that in my classrooms. Again, I've said this a million times, easier said than done, but I do believe that speaking is the one thing your students don't get out in the street. They can do grammar exercises at home, they can read, they can write, but they're never going to speak in their free time. So I do think, again, teachers disagree with me, you can disagree with me, that's fine. I'll just kindly ask you to leave. No, I'm joking, I won't do that. But you can disagree with me, but I think classroom time should be speaking time. That's my opinion. And an activity like this, and I understand you guys, you have directors who want to focus on grammar rules, but I made this kind of a grammar activity too, right? If your objective is modals, should, could, would, this activity is great. You can always play with the sentence starters so your students are using grammar in a realistic way. Honestly, I think if I were teaching should, I would do something like this rather than, I think this activity for 20 minutes, using should would be better than 3 hours of grammar exercises, fill in the blank. Yeah. That's my opinion, and I think most of you agree, because I see you guys are doing this, but yeah. Yes. We have about a minute. Do you want to introduce yourself too? One more question, and then I'm going to have my colleague who just came in to introduce himself. Go ahead.
Well, I'm working on 2 hours for here, and it's a very small town. I got 15 kids. Is it when I start to English class until my boys, nobody can speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. Everybody can speak English or make another thing, but nobody speaks Spanish. If somebody else speaks Spanish, can give you candy by tomorrow, everyone.
Strict rules, yes, I always say. Yeah, no, that's good. I like that, yeah. Again, it takes practice. So for the teacher who just graduated, try day 1 English only. I promise you, it will work out. So my colleague did arrive. He's here. He's feeling better. But I just wanted him to introduce himself because he's the coordinator of the Esquina Franklin. So I'm going to let him take it away.
So thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Yes, I'm the coordinator. We are at the 5th floor of the Biblioteca Pública del Estado. Have you been there? Anyone? To the library, a la biblioteca? No one? Okay, so you should go. We are at the 5th floor. We have different activities. We have Michael in, so he can also help you to do planning or whatever you
Yeah, so I was
want.
going to say, as I said, my job here is to train teachers. So if you ever want me to come to where you are, to your school, to give a workshop, come by our desk. All right, yes, come by our desk after this talk. I'll give you my email. And yeah, I'd love to come do a workshop where you guys are. Is anyone in Cancun? Or Puerto Vallarta? I'm coming, okay.
So we have, all our activities are free, so please join us. Follow us on our social media, Esquina Franklin Guadalajara on Facebook, Esquina Franklin, I forgot the word, _ GDL
_
on Instagram. So please come, we have a lot of activities. So we're also very glad to be here and to be able to talk with you. And we wait for you at the Esquina.
Yeah, come by anytime. 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Bring your students too, if you're in the area. Does anyone work around there? All right. Bring your students next week.
At
5th floor, Juan Jose Ariola Library, 5th floor. About 20,
Just
20 to
come by.
30. It's just,
Send
yeah.
us a Facebook message.
As I said, most of my experience has been with secondary. It's like a university area. So if you're a high school teacher, that'd be preferable. As I said, I've never really taught kids. I don't hate kids, but I'm not the best with younger learners. I lose patience very quickly. So teenagers, yes. Teenagers, university students, come by. Come by the stand.
Todo gratis, right?
Everything is free, yes. Everything is free.
We love that word.
I should start with that. I should start the workshop with saying everything we do is free.
All right,
But yes,
great. Thank
come by, and yeah, anytime. All right, thank you guys. I hope it was only 50 minutes, but I could do a lot more with your staff if you want. So yeah, be in touch.
Muchas gracias.